People have been arguing for and against the death penalty for hundreds of years now. It is a form of punishment that dates back to the ancient laws of China and is also known as capital punishment. It is currently legal in 29 states in the United States. Although many countries have abolished capital punishment, many have not yet, and these include China, Japan, India, South Korea, and many Islamic states. The United States is the only Western country that has not abolished the death penalty. The death penalty should be abolished, in my opinion, because it is cruel and unusual punishment, it does not deter crime, the cost is immense, and people may be wrongfully executed. To begin, the death penalty is an incredibly inhumane process. Although the Supreme Court ruled that it is not cruel and unusual, I believe that it is. Lethal injection is most commonly used, although other methods including electrocution, the gas chamber, firing squad, and hanging are still in effect to this day. Nine states still authorize using electrocution, and 161 have executed people since 1976 using this form of execution. There is no way to ensure that these will always go exactly as planned, and sometimes it results in a botched execution. In his book about botched executions in America, Professor Austin Surratt said that 3% of executions since 1890 went wrong in some way. That may not seem like a lot, but that's actually 276 people that died. Lethal injection is the one that's most often used, but it's also the one that's most often botched. These botched executions can be horribly painful for the person being executed, with some inmates having caught fire while being electrocuted. Here are two photos of electric chairs that are still being used to this day, with this one being a chair that was used to electrocute an inmate 2 days ago in Tennessee. There is no doubt in my mind that this is an inhumane process. To continue, there is no evidence to show that the death penalty deters crime. In an issue of the Journal of Criminal Law and Criminology, sociology professor Michael Redelet says that 88.2% of leading criminology experts do not believe that the death penalty deters crime. Not only that, but they also said that the states with the death penalty don't have lower rates of homicides than the states where capital punishment has been abolished. Some experts even said that they believe the death penalty leads to a higher rate of murders in a theory called the brutalization process. I believe we should listen to those who are the experts in their field, as they know best what they are talking about. The death penalty is an incredibly costly process, and even those who are for it cannot deny the numbers that I will present to you next. There are so many costly aspects of this, including the legal costs, the pre-trial costs, jury selection, trials, incarcerations, and appeals. These death penalty cases generate roughly $470,000 more than a similar case without the death penalty. Appeals can be even more costly, with it being projected that in New York, the death penalty would cost $1.8 million per case, just through the trials and initial appeals. Housing death penalty prisoners is even more costly. Between the years of 1978 and 2011, it cost more than $1 billion to house prisoners on death row. And compare that to the annual cost of the death penalty, the annual cost of the death penalty in the state of California is $137 million, while the lifetime cost of incarceration is only $11.5 million. Overall, these costs are overwhelming and are another reason why the death penalty should absolutely be abolished. It is possible with many innocent people can be executed while under the death penalty. More than 4% of death row inmates may be innocent, according to a study done by law professor Samuel Gross. There are actual cases where innocent people were on death row and eventually exonerated, and even some cases where the innocent people were executed. Just this year, a man named Charles Ray Finch was released after 43 years on death row. He was 81 years old when he was finally released. This made him the 166th death row prisoner to have been exonerated in the United States since 1973. These are people who have never committed a single crime, and they almost died because of it. We cannot have a death penalty if people are going to die like this without ever having committed a crime. In 1976, the Supreme Court reinstated the death penalty. The main reason that I believe we still have the death penalty here in the United States has to do with most Americans still supporting it and being very uninformed about the issue. They think that it deters crime, and they think that it brings justice to the families of the victim in each case. However, that is not true. Until public opinion changes drastically, it is unlikely that any leaders will support a repeal of the death penalty. Now that we know the problems with the death penalty and the causes of it, what is the solution? To me, it is simple. Each prisoner should spend life in prison without chance of parole instead of receiving the death penalty. As stated before, the cost of holding a death row inmate in prison is substantial. Doing this would save taxpayers money, and it would also make sure that those who are falsely imprisoned would never be at risk of dying before evidence could be found to prove them innocent. There would be no more inhumane deaths resulting from botched executions, and crime rates will not be affected in any way because the death penalty does not deter crime. I think most Americans would agree if they knew more about this issue. However, it is still something many people feel strongly about on both sides. I hope I have enlightened you all on this topic, and that you now know that this is a problem with a humane and logical solution.